And welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Take TV podcast. Joining me is George, and boy, we have so much to cover. Firstly, we'll start though with an apology for missing the pod last week. Between work and some of our other commitments, it got away from us, but we are coming back bigger and better than ever this week, and we've jam-packed in so much content to help you navigate and survive the buys. But before we get stuck in, joining me, as always, is George. George, how are you going?
Good, JD. I was very comfortable with my cash gen until they all died. But otherwise, doing well. And my week was okay. Scored 2380. So I'll take that. Got the fluke Richards 100, but did have the Darcy 40 covering Sammy Flanders, who hopefully is back. So yeah, I had Fry just stuck in the midfield. My trades were, I doubled down last week, which I didn't really want to do because I know a lot of the philosophies, you see that with the fantasy philosophies are, you're losing points on the field if you're not upgrading. So I was a bit hesitant, but did the double down to Richards and Friger. Richards is injured, which sucks, but he's made 100k. And got rid of Darcy and Graham, who's probably going to come back. I think he already had 28 touches in the VFL, and Davies didn't do much. And I'm ranked I'm ranked 1.9k, so slowly climbing. It'll be a challenge to see where we go from here, but I don't know how I'm going to finish. I will get 22 premiums, but I need to pay for Ryan and Zorko, so that will be make-believe cash gen will get us there. My MVP this week, I just start with Fault. I'm going to give it to Whitfield. I had enough of him every week.
I'm surprised. He has survived 2 concussion incidents in one game. This is unheard of for Whitfield. The man has been eating iron. He's been toughening up, and you're still giving him the fault of the week. Any other week, he gets subbed out for like a 40.
I don't know how we didn't go off for a HIA test, to be honest, because, 2 head knocks. I have no idea how he survived that. But, look, he got through the game somehow, and the Medicos were probably panicking because they needed to win that game against Geelong very badly. But yeah, he's painful. And it was a clanger at the end. He lost 9 or 10 points or something at the end, which was annoying. MVP, I got to give it to Jordan Dawson against the Crows.
He plays for the Crows. Who were they against?
For the Crows. Who did he play? We played West Coast. So he, 158. I'm very happy with that. Was hesitant to jump on him at a cheaper price, but I dare say if I wasn't a Crow supporter, because I do enjoy owning him, probably wouldn't have. But I guess being a Crow supporter there has its benefits for once. So happy with that. And how did you go?
Nice. Yeah, so I scored a 23.38, and I'm around roughly ranked around 3.2k overall. So I think it was a week or two. Maybe it was just as little as 2 weeks ago. We were ranked about the same, and you've now put 1.3k ranks on me with about 100 points difference over those 2 weeks. So still like relatively close to the top. I didn't do the double down. I did do an upgrade. So I went Richards and Houston in for Wilson and Graham. And it would have been better for me probably just to double down because Fraser scored 1 point less than Houston. And now I've got to pay up for Fraser this week. And I lost Richard. So great. It brought in Houston for his lowest score of the year. So struggling a bit, but the team is coming along, I think, somewhat nicely. And then just to finish out, Eno continues to struggle. So 22.29 for him, just sitting outside the 20K for him. My MVP for the week, I would have loved to have given it to Dawson as well, but I guess it has to be Max Gawn with his 180. Would have liked the captain on him, but didn't go there.
Would you have
sorry?
The C on him?
Would I put the C on Gawn?
Would you have left it on him?
After Merritt's 190. Oh, with the
So you had it ready to go.
No. I would have swapped from him to Dawson.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any world where I would have taken the 180 with the calf concerns beforehand. If they're doing pre-game fitness tests like that, there's enough concern for me that they'd get subbed out early that I wouldn't have taken the risk. And then my fault of the week, I've got so many to choose from between the likes of Baker, Oliver, Houston on debut with the 77, Zorko with his 66. But I think I'll give it to Fife, who, after holding him and destroying my team as a result of trying to avoid his sub, He's been nothing but a disappointment the last couple of weeks, and I want to back my old boys in. Yo's already out and injured. I need Fife to lift this week, especially through the buys. I need some ceiling scores from him to get the cash gen going the other way. All right, so we are going to cover buy round strategy, trade in, trade out targets, rookies, what we're doing this week, captains, vice captains, and so much more. But before we get into that, George, hit us with the news. What is the latest SuperCoach relevant news that we should be considering this week?
Been all over Twitter and the injury list, which is updated. About 80% of it's updated on the AFL website. So all the latest is right here. The big one is Joy Richards out for at least 5 weeks. So that is painful. One less body over the buys. I don't know what to do. I'm thinking about trading, but I'm actually probably going to need his money to get like a 23rd later on. So bit of a shame. You'd think he's best 22, so should come back in. A decision for everyone there if you have him. Degoe, not the groin. I think abdomen strain now. Out for 3 to 4. Mason Cox out for 6, and Elliott is still TBC. So all these Collingwood rookies, Harrison, Sullivan, potentially Kruger, who I've read is very injury prone, but you only think that helps them. So I can't see. I'd be shocked if Sullivan would be subbed or out of the 22 based on their injuries. So might be one to jump on late. Something that I'm looking at certainly. Will Setterfield's a test. Cordwell was sort of a target this week at his 460 price with no Parish. I think once again, this happened because I brought him in fantasy a few weeks ago. He thought he was going to gobble up the CBAs and they give him to Stringer. It's a bit hard to know what's going on every week, but I think he's just in that F6 to F10 range. So not sure if he's worth picking. Stanley and Blitzarves. So Stanley's a test and Blitzarves is suspended. So Conway potentially could play, but they still seem to be managing him. They did sub him out. That could have been tactical. Buckley for the Giants is out for 1 to 2. And yeah, obviously we saw Leclerc had an incredible game on the weekend, but yeah, don't know if he can hold with Buckley coming back. Shea Bolton is concussed. He's only 400 odd K, so he could be one to finish off your team if you're struggling for money like me. Rosie did not train, absolute disaster of a hold. So now he's got a bit of an ankle issue as well. So he's had a wretched run and could be low 400s, an M9 if you like. If you're not happy with Green, you could loop him or something. But I think Green will come good. Port training this week. Soldo was in the 1s and Sweet was in the 2s. So yeah, Soldo's completely off the injury list. Hopper has been changed. His injury timeline has changed to midterm. So no actual proper date on that, but won't be seeing him anytime soon. So only can help like a McAuliffe. Taranto is still 1 to 2 away with a wrist, and Libba still has a concussion, which is weird because it wasn't sure if it was a concussion or not. But actually, no, he got the hit to the head. He's had a few different knocks, but he's listed as 1 to 2.
No, the first one was the one where they kept telling us it wasn't a concussion. He's fine. There's no concussion. Then they kind of got bullied into like, oh, okay, we'll put him through protocols. And then the second time around, it's like, oh yeah, he got concussed that last time. I don't know what's going on there, but it sounds very dodgy. At least they're taking it seriously now. All right. Well, thanks for the updates there, George. Lots of relevant stuff going on. Before we jump into maybe some of the player options for each of the buy rounds, I wanted to dig into the strategy a little bit more and ask you some of the common questions I've been hearing that hopefully we have some decent answers to. So firstly, can you trade in premiums this week? Is there any point in doing so, given that anyone that you'd be trading in has at least one buy in the coming weeks?
I think so. It depends on your buy structure, obviously. I mean, pretty obvious answer. For example, if I only have 2 premiums in the round 13 buy, so I'm looking at a Houston, a Ryan, or a Clark in this week, I'm already going to field 20 next week, so it's not really going to make a massive difference. But obviously, if you got like 7 out in the last buy, like me, I can't pick like an Asai Wangani Miller or say a Steele, for example, if you wanted him. So I think just checking your buys, but yeah, it's like, for example, if you want to trade a Closey to a Houston, yes, you'll get 2 scores out of Closey, but Houston theoretically should put 30, 40 points on him. So you'll make it back up this week, and Closey might drop off next week. So then you just got to work it out. What sort of quality rookie you're getting rid of? Are you following break evens? You're trying to jump on. If you want a Jordan Clark, his break even's 20, so just get that done if you want him. So the answer is yes, you can bring in premiums if you can still comfortably field enough players when they have their bye.
All right, excellent. Can you trade in mid prices during the buys? Because I know there's going to be some that are looking at Sexton, Salem, these types. Can you actually bring them in, or even McKercher next week potentially if he's back up his buy? Can you be bringing in these types now, or is it too late? Should we just be going one up, one down, getting to those premiums?
Another one where it sort of depends on your team. What's your trade count looking like? I'm on 12 after this week, so not looking great. And what's your objective? Is Salem? Are you going to hold him for as a D7 M9, or are you just going to keep him for 2 weeks when he's his buy? Because he's a round 14 buy, which is pretty nasty for a lot of people. So I think it depends on their function. If you need their cash gen and scores over the next 2 weeks, then I think it's fine. Or over the buys or however long, I think it's fine. And at the end of the day, we're struggling for cash gen to the point where I'm looking at 200k players to bring in, and there's nothing of base price that will instantly go up this week as far as I'm aware. So yes, I think you can. A lot of us brought in Bailey Humphrey, who got the good buy, the Port and Freo buy from last year for, I think it was 1 week it was 220k, went up to 280. I think I brought him for 280 and he made 100k from there. So look, if they're making money and they're giving you scores, then yes, I think it's fine. But yeah, keep in mind what you're trying to, outside of the buys, you want your team to be finished, and if that means trading that mid-pricer then or keeping them as cover, then that's fine. But you don't want, if bringing a mid-pricer hurts what your final team looks like, then I wouldn't. But otherwise, then yeah, I'd do
it. Okay, cool. So I mean, it sounds like you'd be considering lots of dimensions then, which is both like, how long are you going to hold them for? How many trades you've got left? Does it fit your buyer plans? Will they make you enough money and put the points on field? And you've got to kind of weigh up those things, which I guess is why it makes mid prices harder to pick off during this time of the year versus going one down, one up. But maybe something we can consider a little bit more, just given considering the lack of rookies. Now, just on those, we do have the mid-season draft. I think that's tomorrow night. So one to keep an eye on, because with some of the injury lists that we're looking at, Collingwood, GWS, I could see some people getting debuts pretty early on, but that's something we'll discuss in the coming weeks, especially given it'll be a reasonable amount of time until they're on the bubble anyway. All right, so how many players should you be aiming for on field each week? One of the more basic questions, but for those that haven't maybe been navigating by rounds for that long, what should they be thinking about when it comes to green dots on field?
Ideally 19. I still think you want to look after the team long term, because there's still post by 9 or 10 rounds. I think 9 rounds to go. So do you really want to blow a trade to get a 50 rookie score in, where you could use that trade to, I don't know, that might help your final premium, which could be, I don't know, 20, 30 points a week post buy. So I'm not too fixated on, like, ideally 19 or 20, but it's not always that easy. Like, a lot of us have dead rookies. I think I lost 4 rookies at the start of the year in defense and still holding 2 of them. So it's not going to be smooth sailing. It's hard to get 19, 20 on the field, but ideally 19 or 20, but I'm not afraid to go to 18 or copper donut if I have to. If that means I need that trade for my final team. But yeah, obviously you don't want a donut though, but I'm not obsessed with getting 19 on the field.
Yeah, I would say that with how easy the buys are this year, just given that we've got them spread out across an extra week, and hopefully people have been planning for them a little bit earlier with some of these around 12, 13 buys. I would say that you should be aiming for more like 20, just because getting from 19 to 20 is still pretty beneficial. Pushing beyond that, not great. But I also take your point, George, that you don't want to be wasting or burning trades just to get an extra poor rookie on field. That doesn't really do much. You still have to weigh up the value of those trades as you navigate that. But 20 is a nice aim. Going for 21, 22 beyond that obviously gives some benefit, but diminishing returns and can be quite detrimental if it compromises other weeks. Okay, so should your team be finished by the end of buys? So should you have full 22 premium or near premium side by the end of the buys? Is that a good target for us to have?
Yes, it is every year, and there's no excuse otherwise, I think. So, yes.
And if that's the case, then how many trades should we be realistically left with? Because I think that may help some people get a gauge for like, can I start doing sideways trades? Can I take on these mid prices? Should I be trading in a rookie just for 1 week's worth of score? So how many trades ideally would you have left coming out of these buys with a full team?
Good question. I think last year I had 3 and did push my luck a bit. And I think I blew them all, 2 on injuries and then 1 right before Dacos went down. So I think we were 5 weeks down with no trades. But I did have 23. I had Hobbs and Keys rotating at F6. Ended up fielding both for a bit. But it's a hard one because I think people just go for broke and go for a higher ceiling, and that is blowing as many trades and trying to get away with it, I guess, which I guess people are trying to do. But look, I think 3 minimum, and I am a big advocate for 23 premiums, like a 7th defender. So, for example, Whitfield could have been concussed at least 4 times in the past 2 months, and he hasn't. He misses a week. Instead of covering him with a 50 or 60 from a rookie, you cover him with 100 from a premium. Or like last year, Tom Green does his hammy for 3 weeks. You're covering a premium. With a premium, you're getting 100 instead of 60. So I think ideally you want 23 premium and minimum 3 trades. That would be my aim.
Yeah, and I, honestly, with the extra trades, I could see people even trying to push for 24, but that makes sense. And if you would just had the 22 players, and you're probably looking at wanting to have like maybe 6 trades left, so you can get an extra 1 up, 1 down in to get to that 23rd player.
That's
all
for
right.
potentially where you just
What's
let
up?
his. So that's like if you're holding Joe Richards, he should come back into the team.
Yeah.
And post buy, and then I don't know, maybe you get 3 weeks of cash in from him, and then you worry about your 24th in round like 19 or something.
Yeah, and I think with Rosie potentially getting to 400, there's really no reason why you shouldn't be aiming for at least a 23rd in the midfield, and then maybe trying to find something in defense, forward, ruck, something like that. All right, and then the last question is: can you sideways underperforming premiums during this buy period? And I'm struggling to like pull out some good names here, but maybe someone like a Laird who's been pretty disappointing, and he's not, complete disaster, but he's still 10 points off like a top 8 mid spot. So yeah, what is this an opportunity to jump off some of these players? I mean, it would have been someone like an LDU until his last month, but yeah, should people be moving or sidewaysing off these types now?
Yeah, I think so. If there's like a Jack McRae, it's clearly not a premium, out of favour for that midfield, so he's one I'd be jumping off. Laird's a hard one to read. I just think CBAs aren't probably going to be there for him all year, and the tog's gone down, so I don't think he's top 8 certainly. So he's one. I don't think he'll even be top 12. So he's one I'd jump off. So obviously you want like a Whitfield or LDU, pretty hard to jump off with the first buy, but if you can flip him, like I'm very tempted to ditch English to Grundy. That's another story. So you get a lot of points from this as well. This is a good way to use trades, in my opinion. If you have the trades, getting that extra, I don't know, might be 80 points on the field instead of fielding a rookie, fielding an extra premium. But only if you think that premium's not near top of the line.
All right, excellent. Thank you. I think that's really insightful and probably helps give people a general principles for what strategy they should be employing overall and what they should be aiming for. I think what we'll transition to next is specific players and just like a quick read on them. So I'm sure there's probably like 60 names listed here, and we're not going to go into all of these in depth, but I've tried to break it up by round and team and kept it to some of those mid prices and premiums. And I guess what we're looking for in this next discussion is, for the round 12 players, which is those from Lions, Swans, GWS North, they're obviously on buy this week. But would you be either trading off them if you have them, or would you be looking to trade into them is probably the discussion there. For these round 13 players, so Port and Ferro with that good buy, some of these I think will be a question of can you bring them in this week, but mostly it's are they big targets for you coming out of their buy? And then for the round 14 and 15 players, where the bulk of them are, can you trade any of them in this week? Would you be looking to upgrade to them afterwards. And I think there's probably some more of the speculative mid-pricer ones in there as well. So a bit of a mixed bag. But we'll try and get through these as quick as possible and
Just before we
maybe
get into
spend
this,
a little bit more time in depth on a couple of them where we think it's warranted. Yes, George, sorry, a question.
What are you trying to do this week? Are you trying to fix red dots? Are you trying to upgrade? Just get into your head. What are you thinking you want to do this week?
Yeah, so I mean, I think getting red dots off the field is important. And actually, I've got a couple of points down the bottom end for us to discuss when it gets to trades, just to help with my thinking. I'm still looking at maybe an upgrade this week if it makes sense, and just getting that done. Otherwise, yeah, the rookies that I'm trying to get off or trade out of are ones that either aren't playing or about to start losing a lot of money. So I think that's broadly the case. My bench isn't in too bad of a spot at the moment. So I don't have too many red dots other than the Richards Force one, McKercher, who I'm hoping comes back, and then Garcia, who I'm keen to talk about, potentially sweet as well. So, it's those types that I'm looking at moving out, and then, potentially getting an upgrade. I'm not interested in necessarily sidewaysing plays, at least not this week, but I don't necessarily have some of the ones I would consider moving on anyway.
Okay.
Does that fit broadly with what you're thinking about this week, or are you on a different path?
I'm not sure yet. I think cash gen is priority for me still. Yeah, I don't have Ryan. I need to pay for him.
I think I'm okay on cash gen, but Sarong's probably the only big price player that I don't have. The only post over 600 player that I have that I think I want. The other thing for me is if I didn't have the Richards issue, I'd probably only be doing 2 trades this week. And I would have even considered doing one and not getting an upgrade done. So I do think this is one of those weeks where you can bank trades just because all the upgrades are going to have one bye week planned in. I don't mind banking cash this week, fixing rookies, and then attacking some of these round 12 players coming off the bye, which we'll discuss those targets right now. So, Brisbane Lions, I've got 3 players that are kind of relevant written down here. So Dunkley, Neil, and Zorko. Zorko, I think, still looks like a pretty obvious target coming off his bye, although with his 128 break even, I can see people waiting 1 week before trading him in. George, as a non-owner, how are you thinking about Zorko?
You have to have him because he's clearly top 6. So he's going to be my very last upgrade. I'm going to wait.
I think just the call out for him is round 14 is the Saints matchup, who give up a lot of points to defenders. So round 13 with the higher break even, I think you can watch first Dogs, and then I'd be jumping on him. Dunkley and Neil I've got listed as here as 2 midfielders that aren't very highly owned. Maybe haven't set the world on fire so far. Although Neil is maybe somewhat surprisingly averaging a 117 so far. Dunkley up there on 113. So definitely thereabouts when it comes to top 8 mids. Could you go either of those? I think the only flag here is they're both priced in the low 600s already.
They're around the mark for top 8, so I don't see why not. No issue with either of them.
All right, excellent. Moving on to the Swans then. So I've got a few players listed down here. We have got Goulden, who's pushing for that 100% time and ground. What do Grundy owners do? And Heaney, and then, of course, whether Warner should be considered given his hot form. So I guess just quickly on Heaney, if you don't have him, I think he's a top priority after the buys. Interested in your take on Grundy though, George. So for anyone that still owns him, and he does seem to be somewhat, still pretty popularly owned, would you be jumping off him now into this first buy? And if so, who for? Are you looking at an English, Marshall, Gawn?
I think the top, Gawn 1, and then I think it's Grundy or Marshall 2, and then English 4, in my opinion.
So I think it sounds like you'd then hold Grundy if you can manage to buy pretty well. Yeah.
I think English looks more scared in the ruck by the week. And Rowan, I think, will be fine. Obviously undersized, so against a Gawn, not much chance, but I think he'll be fine.
Yep. All right, so let's tackle Warner then next. He's low 600s now and has got a 3-round average of 138, 5-round average of 130, and he's just looked amazing and a game changer in each game. Less than 5% owned. Is it someone that you could jump into after his buy?
Yeah, I don't fully trust him for some reasons because he hasn't really done this before. So I feel a bit safer with a Lions mid that would be my
At the same
preference.
price. Yeah, that's
He looks
got
brilliant,
proven
though.
history in a Neil Dunkley.
Not my
All
type
right.
of.
Yeah, so the player that I am considering heavily is Goulden. At 535, he is incredibly cheap. And the thing that's, I guess, caught my attention is he's pushing up to 100% time on ground. And these high time on ground players just seem to be a cheat code. We've seen it with Nick Martin. We've seen it with Bailey Smith in the past. We've seen it with Sicily when he was doing 100% as a key position defender. Any interest in Goulden? I know he's been a bit inconsistent so far to start the year, but obviously did have a very good last year and is a mega talented player.
Yeah, I like Goulden. Not bad for 530k. Definitely, I think is the best around that price. It's tough though because he's still mostly wing. I don't think he's top 8, but I think if you're looking for an M8, I think he's fine because he can do 110 in this role. So yeah.
Yeah,
When you
okay,
go
great. I mean,
Goulden-
I think at the price point, I still like him the most of those four, unless you're flush for cash. All right, moving into GWS, and we've got two players that have frustrated owners in Green and Whitfield listed down. So I guess the question here is, if you own either of these two, would you be trading out of them, either Green or Whitfield? And if you don't own them, could you be considering trading into them after their buy, given their cheap price points?
Okay, we'll do this separately. Green's numbers on paper look fine. He's having a lot of clangers and he's been through the ringer with the ankle. He's a hold for me. I don't think selling low on Green is a good idea. Whitfield is about to run into a buy and a McEntee and Jordan tag, you would think. This is going to absolutely suck if you have Whitfield. If you're looking for a D7 post buy, Whitfield's probably going to be like 530k. I think that's a good D7. And then you can use your day cost to cover the mids if you need to with DPP. I'll be pushing Whitfield to D7. I would absolutely not target him during the buys because of this tag run, though.
Yep, I think that makes sense.
Most concussed every week, so.
Yep. I mean, if Whitfield gets cheap enough and it can push someone I don't like to a D7 or he'd be looped with that, then I'd be interested. And if you don't own Green, then I think he is someone that makes sense to potentially target off the buy, just given he's sub 500k. And he's, definitely going to outperform that, you would imagine, on the run home. Hopefully the week off helps get his ankle back to where it needs to be. All right, and then the last team to finish off round 12 is probably the most relevant, which is North. I could probably list more players than the rest of the sides combined here. Where to start? How about we start with Harry Sheasel? So he's the highest average of the lot with 115, priced at 550 now. He obviously his role has changed in the last couple of weeks, but I think played primarily as an on-ball mid last week and looked pretty good doing it. Some people might have been considering jumping off him with the role change, but where are you sitting with Sheasel?
He's a hold and a trade-in target. Pretty simple.
All right, excellent. Moving on to Tristan Cherry then. 108 has been an amazing pick for those that started him, nearly put up 150k for the year, but now into the buy and looks like he may be outperformed by some of the other rucks we discussed earlier. Is he someone you'd be trading this week if he's still owned?
This is a hard one. I think you just hold and then upgrade him on the last buy and focus on getting rookies off the field and not the last buy, sorry, like when post buy's done and then you get a whatever ruckman you want.
Yeah,
it's hard. R2 is not very inspiring, to be honest.
I think I'm a trade for Cherry as well, just because it's not clear to me of Marshall, English, Grundy who actually is the R2. And Cherry's buys are easiest to cover. The others, well, apart from Grundy, the others a little bit harder. So I think holding him through the buys makes sense for me. I wouldn't, try and guess at what the R2 is. And even if you don't have Gorn, I'd wait until Gorn comes off his buy to make that move. LDU next, really interesting one. Underperformer, but has definitely hit his straps in the last month. So 3-round average of 126, 5-round average of 116. He's priced at 576. Is he a trade-in target for non-owners? We have seen that when he's hot, he can go up in the 130 average.
Yeah, certainly if you're playing for ceiling and playing for upside, he's definitely one you could go for. I don't like the durability for me, so I'm still going to stick my flag in the dirt and say no, but looks good.
All right, Fisher. He's now nearly 500k, which is pretty wild, but he's got half back to himself with Sheasel out of there. And even with McKerch coming back, you'd imagine he's able to score pretty well. Is this someone that players have to jump on effectively next week as a top 6 forward option?
I don't think you have much choice. I would, yeah. He looks top 6. And yeah, Sheasel, since Sheasel's gone in the midfield, he's gone, like 140, 110, 120 or something. So
yeah, 3-round average of 123.
Yeah,
so
I think
I think McKerch coming back takes the ceiling off that a little bit, and it's probably a good transition of McKercher, but Fisher does look like someone that you need to jump on. All right, so talking about McKercher, there's some talk that'll be back after his bye, but the timelines are still a little bit foggy. Should owners such as myself trade or hold and persist?
If you've held this long, then you might as well keep holding. I'm not quite sure what the timeline is. I'm not certain. He said it wasn't too serious, but you never know. So I think if you have him, I think you just hold and hopefully get some news.
Yeah, his break even's -5, so really just need him to come back and play one more game, and then if he doesn't look right, can move him on from that point. All right, PAL owners, what do they do?
His DT average is atrocious. Like I think his 5-round is 60 something, 68. I think you could just hold. Like the forward line is such garbage. I don't even know what to do. I think he just holds his price. He's still like 44% CBAs, I think, over the past since he moved out of that full-time mid-roll. His scores aren't really that bad enough to trade.
For me, his break even's 56. He's a luxury trade at the moment. I'd be happy to hold and then get him to someone like a Rankin once they come back, or kind of worry about it post buys. If he's one of the players that ends up as a 23rd, I wouldn't worry too much. And then the last one, just very quickly, and we'll move on from North, is there's a lot of Comben owners. He's up to 370k. He's now got a 3-round average of 88. His break even's 48. I've been asked a couple of questions of like, should you trade him this week? It's a luxury for me. He's got great job security. He's going to play through the buys. He's got ceiling in him. I'd be holding and using him to upgrade later. But if he's the only way to facilitate upgrades, then that is someone you could look to move on. All right, moving into the round 13 buys, we've got Port and Freo. George, where do you want to start, Port or Freo? Both have got actually a ton of relevant players, and we're kind of blessed with these two teams in the past where it's been like, what was it? Was it Geelong and Port for the China game, and they just had no one that was pickable for a couple of those years.
Gold Coast in the
Gold Coast, that was right. It's just shocking. All right, why don't we jump in with Port then? For people that don't own Butters, I think he is a trade-in target. Could you actually go on him this week, or is that someone you're waiting to get after the bye? And maybe you could even lump in Houston into that category as well.
I think Butters 650. Probably think you need to wait.
I think with the Carlton matchup this week, like Hewitt's attention could go to him, although maybe more likely to be Juan Francis. It feels like teams are still weighing up which one of those two to tag.
I think this is a wait until post-buy, and hopefully he drops a bit. It depends on you. If you got enough money to finish it, like get every player you want, then yes. But if you're money conscious, I think you can take value elsewhere, like a low 500s defender or something. So I probably wouldn't.
Yep. Okay. Cool. And then Houston. I think you were mentioning that you might trade him in this week. So is that someone you'd actually consider bringing in this week, or if not, after his bye? Okay, great. And then Horn Francis, I've got next on this list. He's averaging 105. So he's been good, but probably not a top 8 mid. For people that have traded him in, would you look at jumping off potentially next week and trading into one of those round 12 players we've been talking about, such as a Goulden, a Zorko, these types?
Yes, I would.
All right. Rosie is probably one that we've already discussed a little bit, but he's 467k now, has 170 or 80 break even. So one to look at maybe post buys as a M9. Jordan Sweet, I've got in here just because it sounds like he's going to miss this week. If he does, then I think happy to move him on now.
Yeah. Go on.
Yep. Excellent. And then lastly, Travis Boak, who's come into conversations a little bit. He's 431k, 3-round average of 106, kind of playing a wing role. He's had a few sub-affected games that has brought his average and price down, but is now got forward status or forward eligibility. And coming off of that 133, people are looking at, could he be a top 6 forward for us. What are you thinking here?
I have nothing to add on Boak because I don't know. But looking at the scores, and they look better than a lot of other forwards. What do you think?
I think like just given his age, and I'd have to look it up. I have a feeling it's like 36. I think it's 35. Turns 36 this year though. So there's probably going to be more games where he gets managed, and I'd say more sub games potentially coming for him. So I feel like it is one where if you did have a 23rd, he could be part of that mix, but just straight best 22, a little bit suspicious. And there's probably not enough upside, even though you should have a good break even this week to jump in just for the cash gen element. So yeah, I like not one that I'm super keen on. I think we can probably find other forwards around the same price that'll be a little bit safer to have in our teams. But I don't hate it. If you want to go left field, then go left field. Boak's there.
The just reading his numbers, the tackle numbers look very high, and so do the marks. Like 12 marks, 7 marks, 7 marks, last 3 tackles, 3, 5, and 6. It seems quite high for a wingman.
I'm also conscious it's like with Rosie that's been out, and he does a lot of that stuff through the middle where maybe Boak's playing a bigger role.
I didn't see this game. I don't know if you saw it, but do you know if he pushes into stoppage, or is he just more wing?
I do not recall. Honestly, don't recall. I think I was just watching Butters the very little of that game I got to watch.
Okay. There's too many things that can go wrong here for my liking.
I think close watch though tomorrow night with the Carlton game for me, and then maybe that is one that I look at after his bye in round 13. All right, and then quickly we've got Freo. So Sarong is probably the one to actually. Sarong and Ryan are both in the same category, so they're probably overpriced, or at least very expensive. Ryan 671, Sarong 661. I can't see myself bringing either of these players this week, just given that they've got the bye the next. But if you don't have them, then they do look top of their line and are worth bringing in after their bye. Anything to add on that, George?
Similar as I said with Butters, I think Sarong just wait. I threw in the 90 score, so maybe a bit of might get him a bit cheaper after his bye. Ryan's pissing me off because I need to get him, and there's not much I can do about it. So I think I'm just going to wait on Ryan.
Yep.
It's a sort of open prey mode, which is annoying, but is what it is.
I don't mind bringing these guys in if you've got nothing else to do or your other trades look bad. But yeah, otherwise I think picking them up after their bye makes sense, given that we won't have many good targets to jump onto in round 14. So holding off and grabbing them there makes sense for mine. So 2 other kind of defender options from Freo that are a little bit more speculative. So Hayden Young, who we've seen some ups and downs with, and then Jordan Clark, who's now got a 3-round average of 116, 5-round average of 107. Could you consider bringing either of these into your side?
Yes, I think they're both decent. Clark is getting Clark, I think he's playing well, but I do think Freo are playing a very weird game style where they stuff around with it a lot in defense. So they started winning when I think the marks dried up for Freo in the 4th quarter against Collingwood, and that's when they came back into the game. So maybe they're looking at the review and they're thinking maybe we should stop this bullshit game style. And that could hurt Ryan and Clark. Maybe that's something I bet on, but I think Clark's been pretty good all year, and he actually earns his touches more than Ryan. So I think Clark's good for 100 plus at that price with a good buy, which I think is okay. I mean, ideally you probably want 105, and he's capable of that. Young, I think, can definitely do 105 plus. He's a bit hot and cold, and the tog is sometimes dodgy, and did head off with a hamstring, which the reoccurrence of that, he's had a lot of them in his career, so that does worry me slightly. But I think they're both good for like 102 to 107 range. I don't know which one I'd prefer, but I think at the price, I think they're both decent targets. So I wouldn't be upset having either of those in my defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Clark, the worry that the game style does change is a bit of a concern with already owning Luke Ryan. Like, I feel like I open myself up to that risk too much, where they both become like pretty poor owns. And on the Hayden Young side, I think I'd like to see someone like a Fife or a Brayshaw or someone else basically not play or moved on from their role to give him a little bit more upside. So there are scenarios where I could kind of see myself bringing him in, but it's probably unlikely for my team at the moment. All right, then there's three others to cover off. Firstly, I'll just touch on Darcy. So could be up there with the top three rucks, but he's priced 550, and with the injury risk, I probably wouldn't look at him. But Luke Jackson, who's averaged 101 for the year, 3-round average of 103, but obviously a couple of those games have been without Darcy. He is one of the few players that can kind of provide ruck forward cover. Is he someone that you'd be looking at to bring in to your side, or is this only if Darcy has a season ender?
No, I'm not interested. I think
for owners, then should they be trading him out?
No, because his value is not in the scoring. It is when he's so low. But we could have avoided this. You traded out Marshall. I traded out Meek to field Sweet. It's an absolute debacle. If we had Jackson there, it would have been a lot easier, and we wouldn't have English. So I think that's where the value is, and I think starting him was okay because it saved ruck debacle, but it's hard to foresee. You can't bring him in for 500k with Darcy, because if you bring him for 500k, he's probably going to average I think with Darcy, my guess would be he's averaged about 80. So there's no point now. You get him if you need him.
Yeah, so no. I think if Freo improves, he could go still 85 to 90 playing more forward. But yeah, I think that'll be a tough own. And it's going to be very spiky. That's how his games look. So yeah, if you don't own, probably not jumping on. If you do own, not eager to trade out either. All right, last two priced about the same now. Actually, Jeremy Sharp well out, price is 5. But for owners of Sharp, he's at 400k, and he's obviously had a pretty good 3-4 weeks. I think his 3-round average is around 90. Is he someone that you still would prioritize trading out next week just because he's on the buy, or would you look to hold him through his cover through these buy rounds and maybe move him on at the end? As I'm saying this question out loud, it feels like the answer would be it's team dependent on how badly you need the cover and how badly you need the cash, and either option's okay.
I'll probably trade him next week. It's him and Wilson. I still have Wilson, but it'd be pretty sad to trade Sharp because he's been such a jet of a rook. I think he's 400k. Hold him for this week, and then if you need his money, get your Uber next week with him.
All right, 350k. He's got a 3-round average now of 60 and a 5-round average of 63, which is just sad. What do owners do, George? What do we do?
I think you trade because now is there a bounce back coming, or is he just cooked and needs a spell badly?
Oh, he's going to get a bye week though, right? So this is the thing. He's going to get a bye week off. He'll come back, hopefully get a couple of spike games once he's been refreshed, and then you can move him on.
The way he's going, I think they could use him in subs as a sub of some sort, whether it's start or sub outs. Just not covering the ground well at the moment. Looking slow, getting caught a lot more. And that's the thing. I can't tell if a bounce back's coming or this is going to continue. What's his break even?
It's like 80 or something.
I think you can hold for the buys and just get you might get 70s out of him once he gets this spell. I think if you've held this far, you probably just wait. He's 344k is not a lot. So if I had him, actually, yeah, what I said before was sell. I think given the price in his buy, I think you just hold throughout the buys and hopefully he comes good after a spell. But I think he's got to go at some point.
Yeah, I think if you don't have anyone else to get rid of, it's fine to probably move him on. But I've got other trade outs more than him, so probably just hold and hopefully get some upside during the buys. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, very sad. Very sad. Okay, we're now getting to the round of 14 and 15 players. So mindset changes a little bit here because most of these are, should I be trading them in this week or do I trade them out at their buy? It's not so much around do you upgrade to them after their buy? I mean, you could for some of these round 14 players, but we'll jump into that. Let's start with the second best team in the competition at the moment, the mighty Essendon Bombers. Where should we go? So Merit, if you're I think if you're a Merit owner, you just keep holding. If you're a non-Merit owner, what are you doing?
You just chill, get him after his buy if you want.
All right, cool. Nick Martin, do we still see him as a top 6 defender? In which case, at 106 average and a 550 price tag, should people be bringing him in?
Just wait till after his buy, see how he goes with Ridley. But top 6 is questionable. Thereabouts, I'm confident he'll be thereabouts. So I think he's a good target after his buy.
And then you segued perfectly for me. Ridley questions have been coming up after that 162 on the weekend.
You can answer these.
I can answer. Okay, so yeah, don't go Ridley. Wait until after the buy. Wait until some more data. I wouldn't go there. Zach Reed. So he's just in there as a red dot rookie example. So if you've got a red dot rookie from these later games, should you be trading them out? And I think for someone like for most of them, the answer is probably yes. You can move them on. But for someone that doesn't have any money in them, like Reed, I would just wait for them to hopefully come back. I would trade around them. And then the last one here is Caldwell. So for those that have brought him in, do you need to get off him? And for those that haven't got him, could you consider him at all?
Not pick him, and if I had him, I'd hold him.
All right, excellent. Moving on, we've got Melbourne. So for non-Gawn owners, he's now 674k. You can't possibly bring him in with a buy coming up, can you? I think you just got to trade around that.
I mean, you could if you've got a Sweet or a Meek, which those are the only people who probably need rucks at the moment.
All right, very good. And then the other three D's options I've got are Oliver, Petrarca, and Salem. So they're all discounted on what we've seen out of their best in the past. Can you be bringing in any of these guys? Should you be aiming for them after their bye?
No, probably not. Oliver, I still think the limited preseason is a risk of catching up to him, although he's built into form. Petrarca is he's too valuable forward for them, I think. I think we see a decent split, and I don't like that. And Salem, I'm not sure on. I think Salem's like he'll make money, so I think it's a low risk play, but you need a plan B if something happens to him.
For Salem types, like I've already got McKercher, Fisher, Baker, who are all kind of like those cheaper guys that had this type of risk attached. I probably can't do a fourth one of those. I probably don't want to, but I think if you're low on those types, then Salem is a different route that you could go after. Petrarca, I'm still somewhat interested in. He's 100k down, 110k down on his starting price, averaging 109, despite the funky start and all the tag attention he's been getting. I don't mind considering him as a last midfield option, especially if you don't have some of these other scuffed guys. Oliver, I wouldn't be like desperate to jump into at this point. I think, if you've got him, fine. If you don't have him, then Petrarca's 40k more. I think I'd rather go there. I'd even probably rather wait for Rosie at this point. All right, next up we have got the Geelong Cats. So weird team with relevance this year. It's probably not the players we've expected at all. A lot of speculation here. So firstly, Tom Stewart, he's just done, right? If you own, are you looking to jump off him? And if you don't own, there's no way you can trade into him, right?
Something's off with him. He's getting checked by the docs like almost every game, like goes off for a bit. So I wonder if something's up. Did save his score thanks to Whitfield kicking it down his throat. I think Green was the other one that kicked down his throat, I think. So got 2 intercepts and just got a good score. When he probably didn't get that, then he would have been another disappointing one. Yeah, just very fumbly this year. I can't tell if the turnaround's coming or not, but he doesn't look great. So he's one I'm just happy to sit out on. And if you have him, I think you hold to the buy at least and see what you want to do there. I'd probably prefer him in this horrible form than Whitfield, though. So, yeah.
Well, he's an option I'd prefer to both of them, I think, and that is Max Holmes, who has continued on with that halfback role that we've kind of seen and has now got a 5-round average of 111 coming into Richmond this week. Is this someone that you could jump on? And I think I'll just answer the question myself. I think I could. I'd rather it than some of these others, especially as a point of difference option. He's less than 8% owned. If you are looking for an upgrade in defense, I think Max Holmes could be considered compared to some of these others.
Yeah.
All right. Conway, I just wanted to quickly touch on. So it sounds like Stanley might be suffered or battling some type of injury. If we get news that he's out for a while, could Sweet to Conway be a play this week, especially given that would mean cover during the buys?
I kind of have to play him. Blitzar's coming back. I think he's nearly 300k now. I think the risk of Chris Scott stuffing around with him, resting him with Blitzar's coming back, I think that's a bit of a risk because they made it clear that he needed to be managed throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like that, and I would rather just pay for a proper ruckman.
Okay, so it's a no to Conway. And then last one I just wanted to quickly touch on is Jeremy Cameron is one of those forwards that can, put together top 6 at periods of time. He's 430k at the moment. Is this someone you could consider maybe after their buys? And I think the answer here is just like put him on your watch list, see how he's tracking then and what the other forward options look like, but potentially one to keep on the watch list. All right, moving into the Suns, and there are the 4 midfielders to talk through. I mean, one of those 4 isn't necessarily a midfielder anymore, but Flanders, Miller, Rowell, Anderson. So I guess for Flanders, he is a top priority. If you don't have him, bring him in. And then for the other 3, Miller, Rowell, Anderson, would you be considering bringing any of these players in or trading them out if you own them?
I wouldn't trade any of them. I think Anderson's probably driving a few people nuts. Just the easy tag target. So I'd hold all 3. Wouldn't. If I had to trade one in, I'd probably grab Rao. But otherwise, I'd hold all 3. I wouldn't trade any of them.
Yep. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and I think as cheap as Anderson's getting, as much as I'd like for him to be a target, it just seems like the risk of him getting tagged through the back end of the year is too high for that to be someone that you'd want to jump on. Then the only other option I think is worth talking about here is just Alex Sexton. So he had another pretty decent week. He scored an 86. He's now up to 334Ks, as made 200K for the year, surprisingly. If you don't own, you can't possibly jump on. And if you do own, you're just riding him to the buy. Is that how you see it?
Most likely. I think Weller is 8 weeks away and Powell round 15. So 2 more weeks of Sexton without Powell, basically.
Yep.
No, is it 2? Right. No, yeah, it's 2 more.
Yeah. Then the buy, and then I think he's back after that. That makes sense. Okay. Eagles. So the name on everyone's lips is Jerry McGovern, who is averaging 109 for the year, 3-round average of 115, and has the Saints matchup this week at 550k. He does look like a top 6 defender for the rest of the year, I would say. The question is, can you go him given the injury risk, his age, and all that good stuff?
A bit like Holmes. I think too much soft tissue history for my liking. Holmes is much younger, though. Just me being stubborn. I think there are alternatives there that aren't at very much smaller injury risk. So I'd rather go there. But he definitely has a ceiling. He's got that intercept plus kick-ins plus distributor of halfback. So lots of scoring avenues. But he looks really good this year. I don't know. I don't have the trades to take an injury risk, so it's a no from me. But if you do, then I don't see why not.
Yep. Okay. I think I'd still rather go Holmes at this point, but both are pod defender options that you could definitely look at. Next up, Harley Reid. So put together a 73 on the weekend, and I'm kind of amazed he got there, just given how poorly that game started for him. What are owners doing here? Are they holding him to this round 14 buy and then jumping off, or do you think you can keep holding him past that?
Saints and North had Optus next to. That's a clear hold.
And then reassess after buys. Great.
Yeah.
And then I had Yo on here, but let's not discuss him. If he gets cheap enough, then maybe you could look at. But the injury risk with him hurting the groin is probably too much. If you do own him still and held him, I'd probably be looking to jump off at some point, to be honest. But as with Reid, the next 2 fixtures is pretty nice, so maybe you could look at his buy. And then the last one here is just Jake the Snake Waterman, who's been pretty good to this point in the year. He's averaging 95, dropped to 36 on the weekend. If he drops cash over the next couple of weeks, is that someone you could consider in the back half of the year as a sneaky forward option? Say he gets down to mid 400s?
Looks good. Jesus, look at his last 5 before this 30. Oh my God.
Yeah, crazy. He's been very good form. Very good form.
Like that. Yeah, it looks good. Old plugger from Perth. So the next 2 is the time to get him. Saints and North, then Essendon. So you take Mackay's okay.
I wouldn't jump on him at his current price of 520. So if you think that the next 2 is the fixture to target, then it sounds like just a pass for me.
I think I'd take Curnow post-buy. Kurnow's run post-buy is quite nice.
Excellent segue, because we are going to talk about the Blues. They are the last round 14 side for us to cover. There's 2 key forwards to talk about here in Curnow and Mackay. And as you mentioned, their run home looks pretty good. So Curnow is priced at 468 now, and Mackay at 430. would you be comfortable with people targeting these players probably after their bye and jumping on them for the run home?
I don't think the top 6. I think you want the main 3: Zorko, Heaney, who's the other one? Flanders, Fisher, Rankin, and then like at F6, plus like Jackson on the bench if you need him, or if something happens to Darcy. So I think if you've got those 5 and then save a space for Jackson, and then you need a 7th, I think more Curnow, not Mackay. I think Curnow's done it before. Mackay probably not as dominant as Curnow, I think. I'll take Curnow.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, Kernow's the one that interests me, so I'll be keeping an eye on him, but there's no guarantees that he comes into the side. Same kind of category as Cameron for mine. And then Walsh, 560k, so still priced pretty reasonably and averaging 115. If you don't own him, is he someone you'd be looking to as a top 8, or do you think he kind of sits just outside that mix and you should be maybe focusing on some of the other targets we've mentioned so far?
I think he's top 8.
So there you go. 560 could reasonably bring him in this week if you didn't own.
Yeah, I think I didn't pick him for a reason, and that reason still stands, but he looks fine. So,
yep. Okay, cool. And then the last one I just had as a sneaky little watch list here. So Adam Sart's 437. He had a 26 before he got injured and subbed out at the Crows. Then he had a 63 coming back on the weekend. So his break even, I believe, is reasonably high, like a 160, 170. Could be sub 400k in the next week or two. Just one to look if you're really desperate for a cheap defender option. I think he's at least got the proven history over some of the other cheaper options we'll look at. And I'd probably rather someone like Assad to Salem anyway. As much as George will protest no, we are talking desperation stations here. All right, round 15, Dogs, Pies, Tigers, Crows, Hawks, and Saints. So I think the real thing here is you're either probably trading them in this week, maybe next. Otherwise, you're waiting until after their bye. And for some of these players, it'll be a question of, are you actually looking to trade out of them at their bye if you do own them? So let's start with the Dogs, which is going to be the most content-heavy of these round 15 sides, I believe, because despite Bevo's terrorism, there are still lots of players that we could talk about here. And just looking at the list that I wrote down, I realized I disrespected one of them who's actually, near the top of the averages. Let's start with Bontempelli, though. 632k. If you don't own Bont, would you be aiming to bring him in this side of the buys?
Yeah, you got to get him. All right. But yeah, I still would because Bont.
Yep. So Treloar is 650k, but he's been averaging 117, right up there in the top 8 mids. Surely there's no way you can bring him in, given his history, though.
Is he averaging 117?
117, yeah. His 3-round average is 134. His 5-round is 121. With Libra out of the side, he's been absolutely on fire.
His buy-in price isn't great. No, thanks.
Okay. Let's jump on to what do Darcy owners do? I'm one. I think that's just a trade out this week if you've got him.
Yeah. Time to go, but could put up a big one.
Yep. Yeah. If you've got like lots of other non-playing players and you're going to struggle to put a team together, I think you could probably just cop the cash loss and maybe trade him out later in the buys. But if you're in a position to, move him on this week. For those that do and don't own English, what are we doing, George? He's averaging 111, which is well down on his best couple of years, to over 150k down from his starting price. Has not looked good the last few weeks, averaging just 93. What's the go here? Just hold as gold if you own him, and if you don't own him, he's probably not someone you're trading into, right? Because you've got other players coming off earlier buys that you might jump on before him.
Have you watched him in the last few games?
Yeah, it's been an absolute dreadful watch. How did Gawn put up 180 on Marshall and English get creamed by him the week before? Just like, it's just so hard to watch.
I can't stand owning him, and I will never pick him again.
Okay, I'll probably pick him again next year. So, okay. Sorry, just quickly then to answer my own questions. If you do own him, I think you just keep holding. He's fit. Don't keep mucking around with the ruck games. Hopefully his form comes back soon. And they're playing Collingwood this week with Cox potentially out. It may just mean Darcy Cameron rucking solo. Could mean good things. Could could mean whatever. And maybe if you don't own Gorn and you wanted to look at exiting him, it would be like that round 15 trade you do in English to Gorn move, and that could make sense. If you don't own him at this point, you're probably not aiming for him as a target just because the buy is awkward. Okay. Couple of defenders up next. Let's talk about Bailey Dale and Ed Richards. So Dale's form's kind of continued on. He's averaging 96 now, 5-round average of 108. Any interest in him on the back half of the year, or do you think this is one that if you didn't jump on him early, you just leave it alone?
There's a few exceptions, but I'm not sure. Given his buy, I think I'd rather be picking off players off their buy. But I think he's a very decent shot at the top 6, like lower, like 6 to 10 range. It looks really good this year.
And look, the next one I think is probably even more so. But Ed Richards looks like he could be a decent option, given that even when Lib has been back in, it's been persisted with him in the midfield. But he's missing this week with concussion. His break even's not particularly low, and his price isn't particularly great. So I think Ed Richards could be there or thereabouts, but one you probably look at post round 15 rather than on this side of it. The only other speculative option, I had Lib originally, but I just think with the concussions this year, you can't really look at him. The only other speculative one I had was Caleb Daniel, who's down over 200,000 from his starting price. He's now at 304K. He's got a break even of 92, but played a full game for the first time in a while last week. If he's full game status continues, is this someone you could be looking at as a 23rd, 24th player?
No, too VFL risk.
Okay. That is fine for me. Yeah, I think he's interesting, but yes, very speculative. Moving on to the pies here, there's probably just 2 players I want to talk about, and that is Dacos. If you don't have him, grab him. And then the other one is Jack Crisp, who's put together a pretty good month of football with De Goey being out of the side, and who will continue to be out of the side until this round 15 bye. He's priced at 522K, defender mid status, 3-round average 113, 5-round of 103. Any interest in the crispy one?
No.
All right, very good. Thanks for the in-depth analysis, as always, George. I think our viewers gained a lot of insight out of the no. All right, moving on to the Tigers then. 3 kind of discounted options that, I don't know, one of these I'm kind of embarrassed to even put in here. But you've got Bolton, Baker, and Short, who have all been on people's lips at some point throughout this year. Any interest in any of these 3?
A little bit of interest in Shea. I think his last 4 games are really good, so it'd be very late in the season. And at the price, he's someone that got to 550K. Gee, he's a hard watch when he's not on, though. He's one I'd want looping at F7. So I think Shea, maybe.
The Tigers also have to be on. He has to be on. Tigers have to be on. But I think you're right. He's 410K now. And I think he's got a decent break even. Oh, no, it's 67. It's quite achievable, actually. So, look, but yeah, that is someone you could maybe bring in as a speculative, just given his price point is very cheap.
Yeah, the next few are not great, Geelong away, Adelaide away, Hawks MC, not too bad, Carlton. But the last 5 games are Collingwood, North, St Kilda, Hawthorn, and then Gold Coast at the G. So those last 5 look not too bad.
Okay.
Probably one before then. So maybe one for that time of the year if he's cheap.
Yep.
Baker.
Yeah, the Baker.
Yeah. Baker CBA is on a timer, and he's a hard. I owned him last year in fantasy when he played a few games in defense. He's not clean with the ball. He's a bit reckless, gives away dumb frees, but he can score. I think the score will come while he gets to mid-time, but that mid-time's probably on a timer as a few players come back, such as Taranto. I guess Hopper's a while away now. And they've got a bunch of kids that they probably should be playing in the midfield, like a McAuliffe, Sonsi. Surely they give these guys a run, knowing Baker's already bought a house in WA. So I'd probably avoid Baker for that reason.
Yep. And then Shorty, who's 377K, but just cannot seem to put scores together at the moment.
I read Big Footy game reviews, just see what supporters are saying. And there's 2 players that are copying it more than any other at the moment. One is Rayner, who's been awful this year, and Brisbane supporters want him traded. And the other is Short, who's entering Cook's territory, where the work rate's not as good as it used to be, and he's just bombing it a lot. He looks awful, and he's coming off, I think, 5 soft tissue injuries in about 18 months. Do not touch Short.
All right, excellent. Thank you. Crows, your side, George. So if you don't own Jordan Dawson, what are you doing?
I think you got to wait. Get someone with a better buy. I guess similar boat to Bont. They have the same buy, don't they? It's
Yeah,
like
but
it's so hard
he's
to
got
get.
Hawks Tigers the next two, and he's break even's 100, so very achievable. I don't know if he's actually going to be down in price. So if you can accommodate the buy, I don't mind targeting him this week. Otherwise, yeah, you might be left just not owning him for the year. I think is a likely outcome.
Yep.
Next up, I wanted to discuss Matt Crouch. He's averaging 110. He's actually the highest averaging Crow for the season at the moment and looking decent. If you own him and have continued to hold him to this point, do you actually sideways him out at that round 15 buy, or do you just persist?
Oh, no, I'm going to persist. I like this. There's a bit of a pod at the start of the year, so a bit of attachment for me there. And I think the role's sort of consolidated. So consolidated at 70% mids, 70, low 70s tog. I think that's starting to stick. And he did 108 in this role. He's doing 110 now. He might only do 108 for the rest of the year. That's fine. I think the midfielders aren't as good as we hoped. We've seen Anderson and Rao drop off a bit. A few others too, or others pick up. But even like Merritt and Dunkley haven't been as good with their easy runs. So I'll be holding. I wouldn't bring him in, but I'm gonna hold.
All right, excellent. And then Isaac Rankin, obviously injured for the next couple of games, should be back in time just before the bye to play the Swans, then have the bye. I think we've got him pegged as a top 6 forward, just given that the form we saw in the last month prior to that injury. How are you thinking about getting him in, though? Like, this is, I think, a pretty tricky one to time, and it feels like you might need, that 23rd player effectively playing in his spot until he returns.
Yeah, if you can afford it, this is going to be a good pod for you because he's going to be very hard to trade in at 550k, and you can't get him for probably like a month. So, and if he plays before the buy, he's probably going to go up in price. So, he's one you definitely want if you can. If you can't, like probably me, then I'm not sure. You just got to go a budget guy. So he's top 6. So you get him if you can post buy.
Yeah, excellent. And then the last one here, someone, very near and dear to your heart. They were desperate to get Sam Berry on, so they traded, Sub Saliga off tactically, but they just wanted to get the Berry man on. 232k. If we're desperate for cheap downgrades, could you be looking at Berry, George?
No, they've put Schoenberg ahead of him. I don't know if you saw Schoenberg, but he does not look like he's in shape. But they prefer him at the moment, so you can't pick him because the sub risk is too high. I think he's kind of waiting for Laird's retirement for him to actually get games. So it's a no.
All right. Moving on then to the Hawks. James Sicily's kind of found a little bit of form in the last few weeks. Could you consider him as a left field defender option? He's 550k, averaging 97 for the year, but a 3 on average of 110 and a 5 round of 104.
Yeah. It's a bit risky. A bit like McGovern, same, he's popped the shoulder. Could that pop out again? Amon's picked up as well. So he did, I think, 106 with Amon at halfback last year, and that might be what he does again. That being said, he does double up on Richmond for the rest of the year, which is pretty nice. Buy is not super friendly. Yeah, the buy, here's Richmond right before his buy, so that's pretty annoying.
I think the buy is not too bad, though, because the only other popular defender option is Dacos from that buy, I want to say.
No, here's the one before that. No, wait, so he's got the last one. So you're right.
Yeah, last one. So it's the plays we've been discussing. So it's like Dale, Richards, Dacos, Sicily, Short. There's not the cupboards are pretty bare here. We'll talk about the Saints in a second, where some players may have a couple of those, but yeah, he's for as far as defenders go, it's actually probably one people can cover.
It's a bit like McGovern, high risk. Is it high risk? I don't know, like moderate risk, high reward. You could go there, but yeah, I think without the Richmond fixtures, I probably wouldn't give him the shoulder and whatnot and aim on back there now.
All right, next up is Lloyd Meek. So 124 break even now. He's priced at 530, and the talk this week is that he may have a little bit of syndesmosis, could be a test for the weekend. So if he misses, I think it's probably a pretty easy trade. But even if he gets up, is this one that people may consider jumping off early, or do you try and ride him through to the buys, to his round 15 buy?
I think you flip him to Grundy. However, it sounds like he's almost no chance to play this week. So I think you trade him this week.
Unless for whatever reason you have like a Conway or Sweet gets up or something like that, in which case you could wait another one. And then the last one is, I think, a player you own, George, in Dylan Moore. He's obviously had a couple of pretty average weeks, but the role has kind of looked what it has been when he's been scoring well. So what's your read on this? You've probably been watching him more closely than I have. At 488k with a 145 break even, he's actually a decently cheap trading option for those looking for another forward.
Okay, so I'm going to make a few excuses for him. He's had a lot of blood rules. So I feel like he's losing 5-10 points a week from that.
Man, he'd taken the mark and they took him off for the blood rule and he didn't get to take the kick. As a non-owner, I was like, yeah, let's go.
And then come on, me and like Mini Monk are the only people that bloody own him at the moment.
Oh, boy. I shouldn't have probably. I don't know why, man. I don't know. Maybe it's because my season's so mud, but I was like, yes, let's go. And then I'm looking at like 3% picked. We probably shouldn't be talking about him. He's that lowly owned.
What I will say,
I've
watched him. I feel like they've kicked over his head a few times. Like he's dropped a few marks inside 50. Things need to go right for him. The annoying thing is he's getting CBAs. He's a 30% CBA mid. It's happened 5 weeks in a row. I wouldn't have picked him if he wasn't getting 30% CBAs. And he's just not scoring in stoppages. I think the turn will come eventually, and I think he'll be fine. The buy's not great for him, last buy. So I think he's sort of in that Kerno bucket where you're cheap F6, you can go there. I think the turn is coming, though, because before this 3 round of 70, he went like 110, 130, 140 or something. I can see a turnaround coming. But the last 3 weeks have been absolute trash. I think he can still do 90 with 30% CBA. So,
to be honest, he kind of feels a little bit like Baker to me, not in their play styles, but they've just been getting CBAs and they have some weeks where they score really well and then some weeks where they give you 70s, and you're probably going to get these alternating throughout the year. I don't think you're going to get consistency out of these guys, but they should average, close enough to be F6 to 10, something like that. And I would have more ahead of Baker for anyone playing at home. I'm not trying to group them together, but it's just the scoring profile is going to be frustrating. Even Rankin's been that until the last month as well. All right, and then lastly, we've got the Saints, which is a pretty interesting bucket of players to consider, especially with how the team's been traveling over the last month, probably underperforming a bit, and you can see the frustration and media pressure kind of building. Let's start with Jack Steele, who has been a bit up and down. He's averaging 111 for the year so far, but his 5-round average is just the 98. Priced at 550, I can't imagine people trading him trading him out this week. But if you were an owner, would you consider sideways trading him at that round 15 buy?
Nah, probably just keep him.
Fair enough. And I don't think he's discounted enough for non-owners to be jumping on.
No, I think the knee re-injury risk, which he's had a few times, probably just sit out. But he's got West Coast this week. Gold Coast not great. I think you just hold and then luxury trade around 15 if you want.
Yep. Okay. The Saints West Coast matchup will be interesting, right? Because you've got Yo on Steele and you'll probably have Reed on Windy. And I have a feeling that West Coast could just bully them pretty badly.
Windy's been kicked out of the midfield. He's like 10% days. Yeah, for Paddy Dow.
Oh, wow. Paddy Wow. Yeah, well, I don't think that matchup's any more favourable. But talking about someone that probably shouldn't get beaten up in their matchup this week, and that's Rowan Marshall, who's got BJ Williams. But he's averaging now 110 for the year. Was been pretty good after I traded him out through around average of 135, despite the poor game on the weekend. I think you had him as potentially around R2 with Grundy, but I think with the round 15 buy, this makes him pretty hard to trade in, especially this 620 price point. So it sounds like if you're an owner, you just keep holding, and if you're a non-owner, you'd probably rather go Grundy, just given price point and buy, George.
I think I'd take Grundy next week. It's close. It's hard to tell.
Well, with the extra game that Grundy has, I think that would put it in his favor. It's extra game.
I think if you want Rowan, you can't really flip him, so you grab him in like round 16 when everyone's done with their buys, and he's got this dud score in his system now, so you'd expect him to drop a little bit, although he could go big this week. I'm bringing him into fantasy for sure this week, but I'm confident he's top 2 in that format, but I think he'll be top 3 in this format.
Okay, I've got Nasty Nas on the next one to discuss. So a 103 average for the year now. He's had a good, 5 weeks with a 108 average. And I think the thing that caught my eye on the weekend was Bonner seemed to be pushed out of defense and moved up onto the wing a little bit more. So we have seen, his run home over last year was particularly good, but he's had 4 weeks in a row now where he's gone 110 plus. Is this someone that's a real option this week? And, especially we were talking about the Holmes, McGovern types. I feel like Nas should be right up there in consideration for someone to bring in as a left field defender to carry you home.
Trying to figure out where Windhager played. I think with Nas, it's very much if Sinclair, Nas, Bonner all in defense together, then I don't want him. If one of them is out of that mix, then I would happily pick Nas, because I think you can do 105 to 110 in that system.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because even though Bonner played more up the ground, he still had 6 kick-ins, which is interesting.
Who, Bonner? Okay. I think Sinclair could go back to defense. I'm not sure. But having said that, I think at least, I can't see Sinclair getting 0 CBAs for the rest of the year. They clearly, their midfield is clearly a disaster at the moment, and they need a bit of spark in there. So I think they will continue to use him in some capacity, maybe not 93% CBA like this week with Sinclair. So I don't know. I think he will still do 100 plus. So I think he's okay, but last buy is a bit annoying. I would not be upset with Nas in my team, but yeah, buy is kind of hard. Can't really bring him in after because he has the last buy, so it's a hard one.
I mean, I think once again, it just comes down to if you're not overloaded with that buy, the only other defender option most people have is Dacos. So you probably can handle it, but you'd have to have a lot of faith that he's going to be the pick of the bunch from this range. And then just speaking about two that we touched on there, Bonner and Sinclair, I think if you've owned Bonner to this point, you can probably jump off him at any time. He's gone up 180K for the year. He might still hit around his break even, and I'm sure you've probably got more pressing issues, but one probably to consider jumping off the next couple of weeks. Sinclair is priced effectively the same as Nas, but I don't think there's any way you could pick him over Nas.
Nah, probably not. I don't like him in the midfield as a premium. He's always scored better in defense. Now they got Nas and Bonner there, so it's sort of no man's land pick. I probably wouldn't go there.
Very good. Okay, so that is all the players covered off, basically. I'm sure there's a couple that we've missed here and there, but I feel like we've done a good job covering everyone and sharing some thoughts and the thought process that we're going through as we look at these players for the coming weeks. Let's quickly then move gears and talk about this week very specifically, and in particular when it comes to the rookies, which we are struggling to find good options for, with no one really on the bubble to consider that's playing. There's a couple that are on bye. So, George, why don't you take us through the rookies that you've been thinking about this week and how you've kind of got them ordered as trade-in targets?
Oh boy, I need help with this, so feel free to chime in. Sullivan, I like his job security, and he did 110 plus in the VFL last year, 30% CBA mid. Looks like he's their 4th mid. Playing okay, gave away bad 50, which hurt his score, so probably would have tonned up. Revel, I was reading Brisbane Big 40 on Revel. I think he's like on edge, like 21st, 22nd, 23rd best player. I think if you got him for 102, you're happy. I'm not sure I'd go there now, but he's sort of playing everywhere. Bit of defense, bit of wing. McCullough for 90K. Does he hold his spot with Toronto coming back? If I'm Richmond, I am not dropping him because he looks good in their pathetic at the moment. So I think it'd be pretty dumb to drop McAuliffe. Logan Morris looks good. It looks a natural forward. A good pickup from the Lions. I think picked in the 30s. I wouldn't pick him for 190k as a key position forward though, but he's got a big future. I put McMullen here. I didn't even realize I was going through break-even and stuff, but he's on the buy. Do you know anything about him for the Giants?
Not other than he's scored well. It's one I'll be looking to see if he's in the team afterwards, and I'll probably consider him then. I think, the Darcy Jones injury has really helped. Their injury list in general has helped. So I'm curious to see what happens, post-bye. But he's, given the lack of options, I'd be considering.
Yeah, he scored 65 off 40% TOG.
Yep, and I think both these games have been very high.
PPM,
points per minute. Yeah. So if he actually gets games, I could see him putting up some decent numbers.
Wouldn't have a clue on his job security. I don't even know his role. That's next week's problem, I think.
Yep.
And then Will Dawson, I didn't watch this. Key position defender, is that right?
Yes, he is a key position defender.
Any take on him?
I didn't watch enough of that game. That was one that I missed with me missing the Flanders laid out news. So no take on him. We'll have to listen to North fans on that one. But I think his job security is probably okay because he's one of the younger guys that want to get games into, and none of the other key defender options I've had have really put much together. So if he's still around post-buy, then I think beggars can't be choosers.
Yep. Okay. One we'll look at next week. You could go early. You could go early. I think the other key position players haven't been that good. I think Biggie's done for the time being.
No, I actually think you can't go early because it doesn't give you anyone to go to next week. And we've got these guys that, yes, they're up at the 180, 200k price point, but at least they're good options. And next week, you're not going to have any of those good options. And if for whatever reason a McMullen or a Dawson isn't there or dropped, or you've already traded them in, then I think you literally have no one. So I'd rather hold off and grab those types next week and actually get some of the more expensive guys now that have the job security. Otherwise, you might be trading in some mid-season draft recruit that's playing his first game. It's just scary stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting how people play this. Do they pay up or do they greed and hope for McMullen and Dawson next week? Look, I'll probably skip Rebel next week. I'm looking at McAuliffe in, and I like Sullivan with the injury list too. The good thing about these two rooks is they have, if you already have them, great, but I have neither. They have the last buy. So
yep.
I think Sullivan has to keep playing for injuries, but I think, if they drop McAuliffe, they'd be pretty stupid. But with Toronto coming back, I wouldn't be surprised. So that's why I'm a little hesitant. But yeah.
Last one just to throw in here, Harvey Harrison, 214k as a forward for the Pies. He's only had 2 full games, which is round 8 against Carlton, where he scored an 83, and then last week he scored 99 against Freo. The other 3 games he had were all sub 50, and they're all sub-affected games. But with Richards and Jamie Elliott out, I imagine he gets a bit of a run at it now. Any consideration for him over these other types on the list?
No, I don't want to pay 210k for is he medium forward?
Yep.
No.
Well, that's what Joe Richards was, though, and I would have gladly paid that this week if I didn't own him. And
he played wing, Richards. Bit of wing, bit of forward.
Okay.
Anyway.
I think, the only other risk with him is that Will Hoskin-Elliott is maybe back in a week as well. So it sounds like you've got Sullivan 1 this week, McAuliffe 2. Is that right? Maybe a Harrison type 3rd.
I think McAuliffe 1 because he's 30k cheaper. They both I think McAuliffe CBAs were slightly higher.
You haven't got Fraser in here either because you already own him, I presume.
Yeah. Fraser as well. I'd probably go him 1.
Yeah, I think I'd go him 1 too.
Hang on, actually, wait, change my mind. Fraser played half forward for the second half of the game. I don't like that much, but I think he goes back to defense. Might have been because of the Richards out shuffle.
Yep.
I think because of price, I think I'd take McAuliffe over Fraser because the role's a bit better.
Okay, so McAuliffe 1, Fraser 2, Sullivan 3 is what I'm hearing.
I'll start again. Fraser should go back to defense because of the Richards shuffle. That's what I'm expecting. So Fraser 1, Sullivan 2, McCall 3. Good. I think all three are good though.
All right, excellent. So I've got kids currently on the way home, so we need to wrap this up quick. So I've got two last questions for my team, and then we'll quickly go into trades, captain, vice captain. So if you had, say, Richards and Hugo Garcia, who priced roughly the same, which one of those do you prioritize trading out? Because Richards, we know, is going to miss all the buys. Will be back in 5, but looks like he's got the scoring and job security on the way home. Hugo Garcia could play during the buys potentially, but doesn't really have any job security. Any scoring hasn't been that great. So which one of those two would you hold versus trade?
I think Richards, because Hugo was held over as the emergency last week, so he can't be too far off. And he's played really well in the VFL the week before. Obviously didn't play because he was held over. So yeah, he's actually a chance of coming back. And I dare say Richards could be longer than just after the bye. They're saying 5 to 6. So
okay, cool. And then my second question was, can you trade Sweet to Conway? But I realize we've already answered that. So we can scratch that one and move straight on to our trades for the week.
Who knows? What have I got loaded at the moment? Darcy to Sullivan, Richards to McAuliffe, and then I've got 800k for anybody.
800k? That's a heap of money. All right, so you're looking for an upgrade.
Sorry, 700k, not 800.
That's still enough for anybody.
So Ryan.
Yeah, my trades at the moment are Sweet out, Darcy out, and then Richards out. So moving on 3 red dots. Well, sorry, Darcy's not a red dot, but 2 red dots and someone that's tapped out in price. And then bringing in Matt Rowell, who I'm not entirely sold on as my trade in, but could be there or thereabouts. Fraser, and then I'm deciding on the last rookie spot, and it's probably like a Harrison or a Sullivan type. I've already got McAuliffe. All right, and then last one to finish up for the week is captain, vice captain, George. Who are you looking at putting the VC and C on?
Dacos every week, and then Sarong. Dacos into Sarong.
Nice. I am not a Sarong owner, so I'm currently looking at Dacos into Dawson. But if Rosie doesn't play this week, I might even consider putting the VC on Rosie tomorrow night and then just straight captaining Dacos, which I don't love, but it's in there for consideration. There's not really too many other options I'm a massive fan of this week. Anyone else that, could you consider Gorn against Darcy or anything like that?
Yeah.
I think you'll get maximum attention again after last week. That's my only concern.
I mean, he's the number 1 player in the game at the moment. So you could, I dare say, Rowan against BJ. Maybe more of a VC, but I think everyone will VC Dacos. I like, Dawson as backup. The team's pretty good at the MCG.
Okay, cool. Well, I think that is everything for the week from us. George, can you please sign us off?
Sure. Thanks, everyone, for joining, and we should most probably likely see you next week. I think we will. Maybe Eno will come back. We'll find him. I think he's hiding somewhere, but we'll see. Thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll see you in the next one.